Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Arrow as well as the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Arrow, you can skip to what I had to say about the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Arrow. A great episode. So much went down this episode, so let's break everything down. So basically, we get introduced to the Longbow hunters, which is interesting because I wasn't expecting them to get introduced into the show, because I thought it was kind of like, because last season it made it seem like, oh, they're kind of a myth and a legend, right? Just kind of something meant to spook people, but it's like, no, they're a real deal. And they're pretty tough too. They each kind of have their own weapons, but it seems like even without it, they're still pretty dangerous. Like the one dude who has the shield, that SOB like took a few like not pistol whipping, but gun to the face, like, because Diggle hit him in the face a few times, but he kind of got hit and it didn't slow him down one bit. So I was like, seems like he's a tough SOB all on his own. But their weapons probably helped him even more because he's got a shield. There's one lady that has the silencing device, which I've seen that actress in a lot of stuff. Interesting enough, I think she's going to be in a new Night Flyer show on Sci-Fi, which is interesting. But I feel like I've definitely seen her in other stuff too. I just can't place it. But I think that's the most recent thing I've seen like her pop up in. There's also... Has that premiered yet, or is that going to premiere soon? I don't remember. It's definitely either one. I don't know. The other one has like this. Who does that remind me of? Like the wrist device she has. It seems so familiar. It reminds me of someone else that has something like that. A projectile thing on their wrist. That reminds me of someone, and I just can't place it. Like a DC hero or something. Or maybe I'm thinking of someone from Marvel or something. I don't know. It reminds me of somebody's go-to thing. But nevertheless. So they're pretty badass on their own. It turns out they're working for Diaz. He has the money and stuff to do it. Like, legitimately, I'm getting all over the place. I do apologize. So first of all, Laurel and Dinah fighting the silencer. That was so dope. Because, like, even their screams couldn't affect her because a device lets her create a pocket of silence, which makes it very good at stealth. But, like, the whole scene was muffled. Like, her fighting, like, Laurel fighting her. I was like, that's so dope. And like Dinah's nearby, but she can't hear. So obviously it has like an area effect. But even like because of the silence, and I guess the device, because it creates a like muffling sound, it ended up creating like, it creates a pocket of silence. So even like their screams couldn't reach her. It was almost like a protective shield. Maybe it's a side effect of the device, or maybe it's more so like, it's an added bonus of creating the silence. But they were able to break through by both her and Dinah putting their screams together. So that's definitely going to be a match for either one of them going forward, because I'm sure the device isn't completely broken. It's just, taken out of commission in this particular instance. That was pretty dope. It was also kind of interesting, too, because the whole conversation between Laurel and Dinah, because Laurel actually wants to kill Diaz. That's why she's been avoiding all the police protection, because she wants to kill Diaz herself for the Quentin thing. Because even though she played it up so long, like we saw that last season, she actually legitimately started caring about Quentin. Like it was kind of hard to tell because it seems she flip-flopped a lot. But when it came to Quentin, she definitely had a softer spot, especially compared to anyone else. But even when she was using people, like she always went out of her way to make sure Quentin was okay. Like everything, like because, she grew up most of her life not having a dad. So Quentin looking at her like his daughter, even though she isn't, she even talks about it, like she hadn't had someone actually care about her in a long time, because like legitimately she went from bad guy to bad guy, trying to find a family and a home, whether it be Diaz or Adrian or Zoom. She was always looking for someone to kind of fill that hole in her heart, like, and it seems like Quentin did that, and so that's why she went for revenge for him. And she knows that Dinah will probably never forget, because for her it's like Dinah was like, oh, that's what you're doing. It's so interesting to still see that you are still the murderer that you've always been, and she wants Dinah to know, like, you may not forgive me for what I did to Vincent, but I am sorry, and and no matter how long it takes, I'm going to prove to you that I'm not that person anymore. So that's definitely going to be interesting going forward, the whole like Dinah and Laurel dynamic of like obviously their history together and stuff like that. Because even Dinah was like, yeah, I don't want to protect you, but the fact of the matter is I have to, because you're the DA, and just because it's what Quentin would want, and I at very least have to fulfill his wishes. So there's that whole aspect to it too. So I thought that was so interesting. So I'm interested to see what they ended up doing with that dynamic between those two. They might end up becoming close, even past, be able to move past everything. Because in all this time, like she's like Earth 2 Laurel has been there. We've never seen her as sincere as she was in that moment, like tears in her eyes about like, I understand what kind of pain I caused you when I killed Vincent. Like you can tell even at the moment when she killed Vincent, she was reluctant to do it, but she made it seem like she was 100% okay with it, like it was all good. So it's just a sad situation all its own, but like I said, I'm so interested to see where they go with that. Then on the other side of things, there's the whole thing with Oliver in prison. I like his buddy, but at the same time, I brought it up in the premiere. There's just something about that dude I don't trust. He's just, in fact, he's getting all buddy with Oliver is one thing, but another part of me is just like, I feel like you're manipulating. I mean, DS has got a lot of people in there. Who's to say that whole situation isn't part of it too, that he's stringing Oliver along for whatever reason? I mean, to be fair, we might see that circle back around because like they brought up the whole fact is that like, oh, he says I'm in here for something I didn't do. So, or at least murdering someone that he didn't do. Remember he brought that up last episode. So that might be something we see Oliver's situation might not change, so maybe he tries to get people from the outside to help that dude get free. Maybe that kind of plays into Diaz's plan in some shape or form. Maybe, I don't know. But like I said, he's being his sidekick and buddy because he's like, no one's going to mess with you in here, so now no one's going to mess with me because I'm all buddy-buddy with the Green Arrow. And talking about WWGAD. And Oliver's like, what? He's like, what would Green Arrow do? And Oliver's like, oh, okay. And then like he's helping Oliver in whatever way he can. Because he's even collected information for Oliver, so that's pretty cool. He's kind of like Oliver's sidekick in this regard. But then there's a whole situation of like trying to get information out of Brick about Diaz. But to get the information he needs on Diaz, he has to get rid of York. And he tries to, in every shape or form, he tries to talk to York, he tries to warn him, and tries to find dirt on him. But it turns out York's actually pretty good at his job. He's kind of a dick. He's a jerk, but the fact of the matter is he's a decent dude. And the thing is, like, Oliver doesn't want to handle things. Like, he doesn't want to go about things like a bad route of, like, trying to blackmail him or even ruin his career to do it, but kind of has no choice in the matter. He ultimately kind of has no choice but to do that when it comes to it, because it's the only way to make sure that he gets to live when this is all said and done. But it's really interesting his perspective on why he hates Oliver so much. Like, a lot of people in here might think you're a hero, but he's like, to me, you're just a criminal. You know, the fact of the matter is you're this and that. And Oliver's saying, like, the fact of the matter is Diaz came after me, my wife, and my son, and I would do whatever it takes to protect my family. Which we understand he's kind of a family man himself. But his biggest issue is because he's like, oh, you made yourself seem like you were above the law. You made the law a joke. So I guess he, as someone, because it also turns out he was in the military for a while. So I think that's another level of why he is as hard as he is on Oliver, is because he thinks Oliver is trying to, it's like, no, there's an order and there's a law to everything and you feel like you're above it. None of it applies to you. He's like, because he looks at Oliver as a rich, entitled kid. A lot of people looked at Oliver as. And so for him, it doesn't matter what Oliver was trying to do as a Green Arrow. It's like you kind of circumvented the law and stuff like that. And he's also saying like, oh, like who's to say you actually did any good, you know, for this city? Because it's like, it's that whole age-old debate when it comes to Batman. Did the freaks come before or after Batman? Because all of a sudden it's like, oh, you see all these superpowered freak people, like probably the same thing with a lot of DC superheroes. It's like, we never had all these issues. Metropolis didn't have the supervillain issue that it had until Superman popped up, because there's always going to be people who rise to face you, to challenge you, because your very existence is a challenge. Like, you're a challenge I can overcome. So there's that whole thing. It's like, you know, the argument could be made for both Batman and Green Arrow of like, did the hero create the supervillains in the city, or did the city and the supervillains create the hero? That's the whole thing. Because, like, I mean, look at Arrow's case. Like, Star Ling City initially, like, already had its whole criminal enterprise to begin with. There was a whole undertaking situation, was the whole thing on its own, way before Oliver actually got back home. That was actually before he even left, ended up shipwrecked, the whole Lian Yu situation. It was even before that was happening. And then, but you can also make the argument every other subsequent villain could be considered him. Like, let's see, like, the season 2, the whole slave situation, that was Oliver's past coming back to haunt him. The League of Assassins, because they took interest in Oliver, so there was that. Damien Dark, you can make the argument, it kind of put, Damien Dark kind of had his own reasons, but then Adrian Chase, that was directly connected to Oliver, his actions as a hood, so there was that side of things, so you could see the argument. But I was actually kind of surprised how Oliver, kind of circling back to it, how he handled that situation. I was like, what's he going to do? He's starting his army. I was like, what is he going to, I thought, like, are you going to try and fake it? Like, did you talk to him beforehand? Which he tried to, but the dude wouldn't listen. Even though Oliver's trying to have your back. And then Oliver makes it seem like the dude stabbed him. I was like, oh my God. And Oliver's like, he stabbed me. And now he's going to get fired. So obviously that works out for Brick and the others. Obviously they want some criminal reasons why they're doing that. I'm sure the fact is they're doing that must be connected to Diaz in some shape or form. Not unless they've kind of got their own thing going on. So I'm curious to see what that ends up going. Like that's what I was bringing up earlier when I was saying like, yo, Oliver said like he didn't have much choice. He didn't want to go down that route, but doing things his way didn't work out in the end. So he did have to do the whole thing of kind of ruining his reputation. It's like, oh, this man, he stabbed an inmate and stuff like that. So he's fired and out of the way most likely. So, and kind of ruins it. It kind of puts a little stain on his career. But it's, at the very least, your wife and child will have you back home instead of you being in a body bag. So I'm sure Oliver looks at it like that. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. But another side of this episode that really kind of surprised me was Felicity's inadvertent, like her unwillingness to give up. The fact of the matter is that she was so adamant about getting Diaz, even though John's in a situation of he has to like do the whole Argus thing and he can't let anyone do that vigilante stuff. It's like Argus got to handle things by the book when he's being told by his boss, like you need to make sure you get this battery back because this battery can be used to power a weapon. That fact of the matter is you need to get that back. That needs to be top priority, not Diaz. And that puts, you know, Felicity and John at odds because for Felicity, it's like, the fact of the matter is you've kind of given up on Oliver. You think you're saying Oliver's not coming back. The fact is we can never go back to the old lives we have, which is good. That is true because for Arrow, no matter what happens, I even said it, like even if Oliver gets out, he is forever branded to Green Arrow. Things will never change for them. Like their lives will always be this. Like there's no going back to the way it was. Like no Team Arrow, especially with the anti-vigilante laws, because we haven't seen Dinah suit up. We ain't seen Curtis suit up. Renee was the only one we saw kind of suit up last episode. And also Curtis likes his job too. So going all vigilante would get him fired from that too. But for her, it's like the fact of the matter is you won't even suit up like Oliver asked you to, which is like we saw that at the end of season 6. The suit was there and he was contemplating it. But it's also like you've given up on him. And the fact of the matter is it makes her feel like this past 6 years, us as a team meant nothing if you're just willing to just throw that all away. But for John, he admits something that actually really surprised me. It's like, I didn't pick up the hood because I saw what it did to your family and I couldn't have that happen to my family. Because if I picked up the hood, there'd be that whole situation too. I mean, he's under scrutiny as well. So if Green Arrow starts rolling around, Diaz would, I mean, not just Diaz, but I meant Agent Watson, I'm blank, sorry, would have been like, no. Oh, like Diggle would have been the first person she looked into, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's the whole thing of like, because I think for such a long time, Oliver balanced it all. He balanced kind of his personal life, even his life as the mayor, but then all those cards came crashing down last season, all the sacrifice he had to make. And Diggle doesn't think he'd be able to make that sacrifice because he doesn't think he could put his son and his wife through that. So there's that whole complication all on its own. So when the time came for it, like they're working together and everything's good. Like it kind of feels like, oh, Team Arrow's back to a certain degree. But when it came down to it, Diggle chose getting the device back, which was the right move in that case. But for Felicity, she's so focused on taking down Diaz that she can't really see anything else. Her laser focus is on that, which is kind of interesting because that came up about Supergirl in the sense of like, oh yeah, that same thing came about Lex. That's why like the whole him and Mercy thing, but that's Supergirl. So I just won't talk about that too much, but it's just kind of interesting of like, I mean, just that way so I don't overlap too much when I'm discussing the shows, but it was just kind of an interesting conversation in that point, and I think the same thing has happened to Felicity. She's becoming so hyper-focused that she's willing to cut a lot of corners. Did she go the route I thought she would? No. I was like, oh, obviously you're going to work with the new Green Arrow. You're going to try and track him down. I thought that was it. I was like, oh, that's going to be interesting. Turns out that's not the case at all. Turns out she went to Agent Watson. Did not see that coming. So I'm guessing she's going to be side working with the FBI. I mean, they could use Felicity's help because Felicity being the hacker that she is and everything. But I'm sure, so I'm wondering, is she going to get employed by the FBI, or is that just going to be Watson's side thing? I mean, the fact is Watson handles the whole not wanting to work with the whole vigilante thing. You think she wouldn't work with Felicity, but it's like, hey, Oliver paid the price for this situation. You still have done nothing about this Diaz thing. Because for her, it's like Oliver's sacrifice will mean nothing unless Diaz is captured. So no more working with Argus, which I thought, hey, maybe that was going to happen too, but turns out that's not the case. So that really got me, the whole her working with Agent Watson. I'm so interested to see where that goes too. And then we flip to the other side of thing, the future thing, which is so interesting because we're dabbling with the future all over the place. Obviously, I'm recording this before I've watched Legends. But obviously Legends deals with the future. Well, not just necessarily the future, but time travel in general. But we have Barry dealing with the future in regards of his daughter Nora being here and that whole thing, along with his own disappearance, that he never came back. Then there's the whole situation about, because we actually don't know we know it was 2024 when Barry disappears, and she came from 25 years after he went missing. So that means she's from 2049, which happens to be where we deal with Star City, because I brought that up in the premieres. There's a whole thing about Oliver too. Also, interesting note to remember is didn't Oliver, like I said, it's been a while since I've seen him, but didn't Oliver have a mechanical arm? Didn't he lose one of his arms or something like that? I think so. I could be wrong. Nevertheless, that's going to play into what I'm bringing up. But the fact of the matter is we see William in the future. I'm assuming that must, how old is William at that point in time? We don't know how much time has passed. Also, the fact is apparently he's doing super well for himself, because he was talking about I spent over $1 billion working on a device to kind of make it so affordable, magnetic levitation. So obviously he's got some business savvy. So either he's working on it in a sense of he never said he was directly working on it, just that he spent billions on it. So either he's super smart and was working on that, or he's part of a company or something. Because I brought up before, there's the whole 2049 where there's the whole Smoke Industries. What was Palmer Tech at the time is now Smoke Industries. Makes you go, what about that? So Roy is unwilling to talk about the future. I mean, the past in particular, because it turns out the arrowhead that Felicity gave him, that gave to William, was GPS location to Lee and you. Why specifically? Because it's interesting, because it's how far in advance did she plan that out? Because for William to be where he is now, and for that to be the case, to go to Lee and you, Roy's there for his own reasons, because he's trying to escape the past. He's trying to forget about the past. Because the last place, I brought it up before, the last time we saw him, he was with Thea dealing with the whole other Lazarus Pit things with Nyssa. So the fact is he's not willing to talk about Thea must mean something happened to her in that time frame. So, okay, there's that. Then there's they find another grave on Lee and you, and it turns out, there's stuff in there. There's Oliver's stuff. There's his bow and arrow. There was a note in there. Roy burned it. Now, immediately my brain jumps to, and it partway came through the episode. I was like, no, they couldn't be doing that. I was like, well, Legends is right after Arrow now. And then seeing that bow and arrow made me go, is William the Green Arrow present day? Did I kind of get it right in that they are giving it to William, but they're making it William from the future? I was like, are we dealing with time travel on Arrow? Did William travel back in time? Because that would also make sense with his whole list. Maybe helping take down the Diaz situation is going to put his dad in a good position. So we might be dealing with double kids trying to save their dads. That would be insane, because you'd have Nora potentially doing, definitely doing that with Barry, trying to figure out what happened to him, and William doing the same thing. Because the way William makes it sound like he hasn't seen neither Felicity nor Oliver since that day. We're still blank on a lot of situations, but it's they left me behind and everything. He's that's why I kind of have commitment issues. But it makes it almost sound like that day, last episode, was the last time that William saw Felicity. So I don't know. That's immediately my thought process because they're talking about we got to go back to Star City. Like I said, we're dealing with 2049 Central City, so I'm assuming we're dealing with the same thing. So, I mean, I guess that would fit timeline-wise because it's like 2018 and he's 20. Yeah, 20 more years. I don't know. Does he look like he's that middle-aged, maybe? Maybe he's in his mid-30s? I mean, to be fair, because I assumed she was in her mid to late. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure because like even Nora's in her 30s. Because the actress who's playing her is like 30, so I think they did kind of like line that up. So it's like, yeah, Nora's in her 30s, so William could he be, but wouldn't he be older? So this might even be before the whole 2049 thing. Because when we looked into Star City back then, who was a Green Arrow at that time? It was John's son, John. So it's kind of like, are we dealing with him taking up the man, at that time he was going by the name Connor Hall because he felt weird. He didn't feel right having his dad's name. So either we're dealing with him coming back in time or William. I think it's William. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But because that was all my thought process. Because we know his son in the comic books, whose name is Connor, interestingly enough, is the one who ends up picking up the mantle of, is his sidekick. I don't know if he ever picks up the mantle after Barry. I mean after Oliver or not. Maybe not. We will ultimately have to wait and see whether my thoughts are correct. But that's my initial theory. I'm like, what are we doing now? That's so crazy. I'm so interested to find out more about this future. Like I said, I love that they're doing that whole aspect of like cutting to the future like that. I figured they might want to do something like that, especially where Arrow stands now. But man, oh man, am I so excited. This season has already getting me more and more with each episode. I'm so excited to see how things play out going forward with everything, with the whole Diaz and the Longbow Hunters, whatever it is that he's up to, and what everything else ends up being with this whole other Green Arrow thing, with the stuff in the future. We'll see. And now moving on to the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow, a great premiere. A lot of stuff went down this episode, so let's break it down. First of all, I love that basically it's them finishing up basically what happened last season, all the anachronisms and stuff like that. They're finishing up. The last one ended up being Paul Revere associated with the whole Beatles situation, and I love that. And it's like, hey, we completely fixed the situation we caused in the first place, but the rest of the team is kind of bored because it's like, oh man, we're just doing the same things we were doing last time, and just after 4 years it's just kind of fixing history. Oh, it's kind of dull now. And even though the thing of like, oh, we should do what Wally did. Wally went off, clearing his head, traveling the world. It's like, isn't that what Wally did last year? And I was like, this show is too meta. I love it. Even the joke that you saw in the trailers about Ray being like, our ratings, the Time Bureau gives people his ratings and stuff like that. Even later on being like, honestly, the supernatural will be good for our ratings. Like, people love supernatural stuff. I'm like, it's too good. This show is too meta for its own good, and I love it. But I love it's like Sarah being like, oh my God, dude, we're heroes for the first time. We saved the day without screwing things up. The only thing we've seen is that dragon that Constantine's talked about. Nothing else has popped up, so it's all good. It's kind of the whole thing behind it all. So there's that. And so even when they get the surprise from like Ava's calling them and they're like, oh man, dude, we're screwed. What's wrong? What happened? What's happened here? Gary, did you say something about the dragon? It's like, no. Okay, so what's going to happen? Oh, lo and behold, it's a surprise party because congratulations, you guys saved the day. Here's some medals. But then immediately later on, Gary had to take the medals because it's such a top secret thing, the whole Time Bureau thing, that nobody can know about it. So I thought that was so cool. You had Nate and Mick breaking into a place because I thought it was so interesting. He's like, oh, I'm fine with a little light criminal activity. He's like, what are you talking about? Mick's like, no, we're going full felony on this. And the fact is they were breaking into a house. I'm like, this is either your house or it's like, this is like, what's going on here? And it's like, oh no, we meet his parents. Very interesting. And I did not expect that to twist. It immediately made my brain go, does that mean, because the fact is his parents are like, we haven't seen you in 2 years, meaning Amaya never actually met his parents, which is kind of sad in its own way. Which I guess in the grand scheme of things, it kind of worked out just because Amaya would have to go back and, go back to where she belongs time-wise. And there's that whole situation. So there's that. But the other side of it I thought was kind of interesting because remember, we dealt a little bit into Nate's family when it came to his grandfather. There's that whole situation, but also like a little bit about his dad. Like he has issues with his dad, and he kind of says like it's because his grandfather wasn't around to be there for his dad, so his dad kind of became a hard ass. Which, because to him, it's like my dad's a great guy to everybody else except for me, because his dad like basically shits on everything that Nate does. It's like, oh, what you have isn't a real job. Oh, you need money, don't you, Nate? And it's just kind of like, because I don't do what you do, you down to just like undermine everything I do. But Nate's mom is really kind of accommodating because like she's like, oh my god, look at you, Rory, Mr. Rory, look at you, y'all buff and everything. How'd you get like that? He's like, prison. And she's like, oh well, isn't that a hoot? You know, it's just kind of like, okay. So I'm interested to see like whether or not his parents become a bigger thing, especially because their experience this episode kind of made him decide to kind of bury the hatchet and kind of realize things between him and his dad aren't that bad, because his dad's not like, his dad is kind of a little distant and cold towards him, but hey, that's something that they can work on. There's that. There's a whole Nora situation. You know, Zari's the only one that really knows that Ray's the one that let her go, and it's actually kind of interesting, and it's something I kind of, you know, it was hinted at last season, was like, you kind of have a thing for Nora. This episode proves it even more. I'll kind of get into that in a little bit, but it's just kind of neat because Zari recognizes what he's done. It's like, oh, you have a big heart, and the fact of the matter is, you're just trying to give someone a second chance, no matter how messed up Nora's whole situation is. Which, in the grand scheme of things, that's something I was thinking about too. I thought about it last season, but it just even more pops up because it becomes even more evident this season that he really has a thing for. But it's like, you're literally into the daughter of like one of your greatest nemesis, like, you know, so it kind of puts that thing of like, that's a little weird, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. But yeah, lo and behold, everyone ends up in Woodstock because something's like, there's been a little anomaly in Woodstock, and everyone ended up getting there for different reasons, because Nate and Rory heard from his dad, like, oh, there was the massacre at Woodstock. Nate, being a historian, is like, okay, so time has changed. Okay, so we go check that out. Ray went there because he saw someone was looking at that time period, which we know it was Gary and Sarah doing that whole thing. So, but he thought like, oh, maybe someone find out that it was Nora there, so got to go before it ends up coming out that I'm the one that let her go. But Zari decides to tag along, and obviously Sarah's going there because of the whole Constantine thing of him saying that some monsters got released, some bones started messing around. She's obviously keeping this from Ava because she doesn't want Ava to think she's a screw up, because like I said before, for the first time they did something without screwing up. They're true heroes this time, and now lo and behold, turns out it's a unicorn. Everything is all great. Yeah. We find a dead hippie with his heart ripped out, but everyone's kind of thinking that's Nora. Yeah, it's not this monster. Oh, look at this unicorn. It's beautiful. Oh, it's so beautiful. Everyone's enchanted. And then it proceeds to stick its horn into a woman's chest, killing her. I was like, oh, that legitimately caught me off guard. I was like, what the hell? And then it proceeded to eat her heart. It's like, that is super messed up, dude. They really kicked in that Constantine angle, just adding a little bit of dark fantasy or dark supernaturalness to it. I was like, I mean, not like that hasn't happened before, but it's like the show's kind of been, the show's had its dark sides, but it's never been that dark before. It's like, oh yeah, here's a unicorn killing people and eating their hearts, blood dripping from its mouth and everything. I'm just like, that is like some metal shit, like, holy crap. And then it like sprays you with its hallucinogenic goop, that's how it disarms you and everybody's tripping. Nate is seeing Mick as his dad, and Mick is seeing Nate as a big version of Axel, and they both say I love you and hug each other. Zari's tripping and seeing love. She's poking fun at Ray, but like, oh, you like her, Ray. And then like Ray's making out with a tree because he sees Nora, which kind of pushes even more. Like, man, you're super into her. So Constantine gets dragged along, the whole like back and forth of like, you don't want to like. It's so interesting because you do have two people who've kind of been through some terrible stuff kind of butting heads, because Constantine's like, let Ava go, because ultimately it's going to end terribly for that situation, just because it's like, he's like, this is coming from a guy who ends up hurting, like the people that are closest to me either get hurt, killed, or worse. But Sarah, having experienced a lot of stuff, let's not forget the most recent tragedy happened last season. Her dad died. And for her, it's like she's not going to let all those terrible things happen. Even her sister died. She can't do anything about that. Just a lot of terrible stuff has happened, and she can't undo that just because of the whole time thing. Got to keep time as much the same as possible. And the fact of the matter is, she won't let that keep her beaten down. Like, the fact of the matter is, she won't let the terrible stuff make her turn her back on life. She will still live her life and enjoy it. So that means still being with Ava because she loves Ava, and everything between them is so good. Ava's even being like, yo, do you want to kind of move in? I'm like, yo, I forgot what their ship name is too, because it came up during the Constantine episode, because obviously, the actor who plays Constantine and the actress who plays Ava were talking and stuff about like what their characters are going to be like a little bit this season, but I forgot what their ship name is. I'm sitting here, I'm blanking on, I can't remember what it was. But nevertheless, I love that they got the ingredients they needed, which involved Nate stealing a blunt from a dude, and the dude be like, come on, man, that's not cool. As a whole bunch of hippies chase after him. They got the necklace. And, specific, because the blunt they needed the saliva of a 9-fingered man, so there was that. And the other thing they needed was a virgin. And it's like, it's Woodstock, where are you going to find a virgin? And it's like, lo and behold, Gary gets brought in. It's like, don't worry, unicorns love pomegranates. Come on. And Sarah's like, come on, we'd never turn an interim member of the Legends into bait or something like that, right, guys? And he's like, I'm an interim member of the Legend. Oh, that's so awesome. And then the whole situation with the unicorn. It's like, see what I mean? Yeah, because you're about to literally use, Gary over there kind of close to you guys is about to die. Gary's like, what'd you say? He's like, nothing, pal. You're doing great, mate. Just lift it a little higher. Good. There you go. It's just like, oh, it's so good. And then things proceeded the way it was. The show has definitely added like a creepy element to it, because like once that unicorn, all its flesh got ripped off and it's just kind of like all bones and stuff, it looks even creepier. Like it wasn't already looking creepy with all the blood dripping from its mouth and stuff like that, ready to get Gary's heart, and then it bites his arm and is dragging him in while John's got the portal open and it's getting dragged away. I was like, dude, like, especially when Zari pulled out the knife, I was like, someone's gonna have to come over and cut off his hand, isn't he's gonna go without a hand. It's like, no, he got it. But then it comes back and snips him. I'm like, oh my god, did it do something to it? Did he get infected or something like that? No, it just happened to rip it, bit off his nipple. I was like, oh my, what is this show becoming? I love it. The show gets wackier and crazier every season, especially now that it's got like a supernatural side to everything. I love it. Just the fact that it matters. And even like, John tries to put a nice spin on it, like, hey, it's all okay, buddy. The fact of the matter is that gives you it's a little more character. It's a badge of honor. The fact of the matter is my soul's already going to hell. Your nipple just got there first. He's like, so we're two birds of the same dark feather. And John was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure thing, buddy. And I was just like, this is where we are with this show. And I love it. But still, there's the whole Ray and Nora thing. The fact is that such a thing makes me wonder, she is out there probably time traveling, because she probably can't stay in one place for too long, or, the Time Bureau will eventually catch up with her. It makes you wonder, will they also ever find out about Ray being the one that kind of helped her escape? I don't think there's anything that would necessarily point to Ray, and I doubt if she was captured, she'd rat Ray out, but maybe given a chance. I don't know. That is a question of like, well, what does Nora do? She was raised in this evil, like, demon cult and had Damien Dark for her dad, but at the same time it's like, she kind of has a chance, like things have changed, maybe she's changed, and we don't know what she's been up to, but I'm curious, will we see her pop up at all this season? I feel like at some point the Legends are probably going to bump into her, which it does make me wonder about the whole her and Zari thing. The whole Ray and Zari thing. It's just probably just her being a pal trying to look out for him, because she ends up showing like, oh yeah, this is my mom and that's me, we were living in DC, which I'm guessing like this season won't really take place in Star City, which I'm guessing the reason why is because everything that's going down with Arrow this season in particular, like they don't need to be in that area just because of all the stuff that's potentially going down future-wise. I don't know. That depends on how they end up playing everything that goes down in Arrow, but for now they're in DC because that's where like the main branch of the Time Bureau is and everything. So we'll see like what that change really means. But nevertheless, getting back to it, Zari feels bad because for her, it's like she knows she could easily change all that, but she knows there's no loopholes because if she changes her history like that, it undoes a lot of the stuff she's done with the Legends, undoes a lot of the people they've helped and saved. So it still doesn't get rid of her guilt about like, I have the power to change it and I don't, And she's even like, why would anyone fear a woman like her? So that makes me feel like not only we're dealing with Nate's family, we're dealing with Zari, because Zari's something we still haven't 100% touched on since last season. Like a lot, like the future she comes from, about like Argus running things, which I'm still kind of like, oh yeah, that's got to play into Arrow in some shape or form, especially considering, Argus is a big part of that show and everything. There's also Ava's side of things where it's like, oh, dealing with what she is, like her being a clone and everything, but a clone with fake memories. Like so much of your identity is fabricated, but, Sarah kind of making her realize like, oh, you're still a person aside from all that. You're still a person I know and love. So I'm curious to see how that circles back. Like I said, Nate's dealing with his whole situation with his family. The only one who doesn't seem like they've got anything so far going for them is Rory. He's kind of just like, yeah, I'm here, which I'm totally fine with. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat because everyone's kind of got their own thing to deal with except for Rory. He's just kind of like, yeah, I'm here. I'm doing my thing. I'm so interested to see what they do with Rory too. But what I'm also interested to, and that's something that came up, when the actors were talking about it, was like the whole thing, the kind of triangle situation between Ava, Constantine, and Sarah. I love that every time Constantine comes up, like Ava's like, yeah, I'm not really too happy about the whole Constantine thing. It's like, oh, your ex-lover just happens to break into my house and everything. Should I be worried about that? But, Ava eventually found out that Sarah was keeping all that a secret because Gary couldn't keep his mouth shut because it's like he got so proud. It took his nipple getting bitten off by a unicorn, which once again, I haven't really talked about it. Men, oh men, are unicorns apparently vicious SOBs, or is that just kind of like it's a demonic unicorn? Are all unicorns like that or what? That's immediately setting it up to be like, man, oh man, this is what we can kind of expect from this season. But I mean, other than that, I think the unicorn's the only thing from at least the trailer I saw that we really got to look at. To be fair, like, most, like I always talk about this every time, like most trailers for stuff like this usually only involves like the stuff from the first episode. So I'd be so interested to see what other kind of like supernatural creatures they come across. But what was really interesting is, Sarah and Ava kind of want to work on their relationship and everything, while also Sarah's trying to get John to join the team, but John's pushing her away just because that's John's way of handling things. Because for him, it's like, if I get too close to people end up getting hurt. And like whether he'll admit it or not, he likes Sarah, Ava, and the legends and stuff like that, and he doesn't want them to get mixed up in his own stuff. Because even Sarah's like, yeah, you seem even more miserable since the last time we saw you. Like, what happened to you in those 5 months? Which we know Constantine's story typically. Which there's a whole animated series that like I watched, like the one that came out. So that does beg the question of, because it feels like that continuity's a little bit, it's different than the TV show continuity. So I'm wondering which one they're going with. I'm guessing because that's kind of on the CW and everything too, that animated series, that they're kind of going more along the lines of that continuity potentially. Maybe they won't have to really delve too deeply into it because it's just kind of like the situation's still the same. The whole soul thing, which has gotten reference about in this whole Arrowverse situation. I'm just curious, is it a situation of which exact continuity they're going with? Or are they just going to keep it super vague? So they just take the aspect of like, yep, a girl's soul is stuck in hell because of John, no matter what the exact specific circumstances were around it. So, but it seems like he really won't have much choice because it seems like a demon is coming after him. Which one specifically? Hard to say. Maybe it's the one that's connected to that little girl's soul. Maybe it's not. There's so much there. We have to ultimately wait and see, which I'm very interested to see what Constantine's story does going forward. Also, like what this means going forward with the legends and everything. Like obviously Nate was talking about they're going to be sticking around for a little while. So does that mean they're going to be bouncing back and forth to like 2018 present day? Because they didn't do that. They did it from time to time here and there, but they didn't do it that often. So I'm wondering, is like 2018 going to be like their main hub potentially? Or are they legitimately for like the next episode or two going to actually stay in 2018 and kind of build upon that? I mean, this is where the Time Bureau is. So it's probably them going to be working like side by side with the Time Bureau because they're not as adversarial this season, especially now that both leaders, that being Ava and Sarah, are dating, which all this will ultimately complicate the relationship because Ava was talking about, I want our relationship to grow. You're like, yeah, things aren't going to work out, especially when you have a pessimist like Constantine being like, end things before things turn bad. So ultimately we'll have to wait and see what the season has in store for us. I'm so excited because I feel like you don't see this too much, like supernatural and science fiction, because this is so far has been a very science fictional show. Obviously season 3 starts stepping into more magical supernatural realms, but this season is definitely pushing that angle. They're not necessarily fixing the time situation that they caused directly, like they broke time at the end of season 2 doing what Sarah did. kind of running into themselves, kind of creating that paradox situation. So that led to time kind of getting super messed up. They fixed that, and now they have to deal with, oh, the fact is all the supernatural stuff and monsters and demons we released. It turns out, we'll have to track them down as they're scattered all around time. So I'm interested to see what those developments end up looking like. You know, what kind of supernatural creatures we run into, like even like who's the main baddie of this season. I'd assume it's who or whatever is after John, but we'll see upon that. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good